After the war ended, there needed to be a new group of people in charge. That's quite hard to do when the Kaisers just left, which kind of meant that Germany needed to sort itself out. They needed to re-emerge and reorganize themselves. And this creates a new era for Germany. So they got to choose the way the country's going to get ran a second time. They organised it with the Kaiser before. This is an opportunity to run the country a whole different way. So the way it was decided was, right, which political party do most people support? And it was the SPD, led by Friedrich Ebert, the guy above me with the good moustache. That party was the Socialist Party, SPD for Socialist. They were the biggest party in the Reichstag, so they were the ones to take over for the limited time after the war ended. And what they did was a number of socialist policies, like trying to get people food, trying to stop unemployment, trying to sort out the issues that have been created by the war, and also signing the Treaty of Versailles. This all culminated with them trying to reorganize the country into what's called the Weimar Republic. They ordered a new election so that people could vote for their parties once again, because they knew they weren't technically, they shouldn't really be in control of Germany. And they basically created a new constitution. And that's what this video particularly is about. What is the constitution of Germany? How has it changed now? So I'm just going to basically go through it. At the top in Germany, rather than a Kaiser, they've replaced it with a president. This person is in total control and can make laws whenever they like. They are in charge of the armed forces, but every 7 years they get elected again. So this will change. And this is where Friedrich Ebert decided he was going to go. Underneath that was going to be a chancellor, Prime Minister's the UK version. A chancellor, largely the same as last time. They can make laws as long as they have 50% of the Reichstag on their side. And then then underneath them is the Reichstag. They got rid of the Bundesrat and replaced it with just Reichstag, which had more people in it now, but still it was men over 25 voting for people in this Reichstag, full of politicians making votes and deciding on laws. And then we had the German people at the bottom who voted for people in the Reichstag, who then decided laws, which were decided by the Kaiser, decided by the president. Like a pyramid, we could say, of power. Now, my question to you is that it sounds very similar to the original constitution. You've just changed a few names and added a few things about people changing job every few years. And the reason for that is because the constitution was made at a dash. They needed to sort their country out fast, so they decided to make their new constitution really quickly, which means there's going to be some issues with it. And there are two major issues that stick out. The first one is called proportional representation, or PR for short. Proportional representation was decided just to say, how are votes going to work in Germany? You might not know this. If you ever watch any CGP Grey videos, you probably know a lot about different voting systems, but I'll put a link to it in the description even. But PR, proportional representation, basically is an attempt to make voting fair. Everyone votes in the country. Let's say they vote for 5 different parties, green, blue, red, whatever. And depending on what percentage of the vote each party gets is going to be directly equal to the amount of power they hold in the Reichstag. This means if you get 20% of the vote in the country, you're going to get 20% of the seats in the Reichstag, or basically 20% of the power. This sounds fair. It is fair. The thing is, it means that it's very unlikely for someone to have a majority of power in Germany. It means there's very unlikely for someone to have 50% of the power. It's very unlikely that someone will be able to have half the room on their side at any one time. It means there's lots of little parties of different people, groups like the Communist Party or the SPD or the People's Party or the Nazi Party, but they're all going to be not in power. They're all going to have to either team up together to make laws, or they're going to have to argue with each other to decide which ideas are best. This means that they're slow. It means that if they want a law to pass, they're all going to have to team up together and argue before it happens. And if there's a big disaster or a big problem that needs solving, the government's going to be slower to react. Mr. Kitcher-Milides described it like this. Imagine if you got 12 different football supporters who all support different football teams and ask them to decide which one's the best. There's going to be arguments, and they're not going to come to a conclusion instantly. And that's exactly what it was like in the German government because of proportional representation. The other issue was one called Article 48. A strange name, but it's basically a law that was trying to avoid the proportional representation problem. They knew that the government was going to be arguing loads, so if there was a disaster, they would institute a thing called Article 48, which basically meant the president, like Friedrich Ebert, had the power to make laws on his own, the power to make laws whenever they wanted, if they enacted Article 48. It was trying to basically speed the government up. But it also meant that the person in this position has a lot of power. It means that they can choose to run Germany exactly the same as a Kaiser. And as you know, that might not go well if this president changes things if they need to. These will all come into play later, but you need to just know what some of them are. So quickly, if you know these answers, you'll know you're confident. How did Germany's control fall to Friedrich Ebert? What did Ebert do with Germany straight away? How was the constitution of Germany structured? Weimar Germany. What's wrong with proportional representation? And what's wrong with Article 48? If you know the answers to those, you're confident in this topic. I'll see you later.